Hello, everyone. This is Pastor Kevin O'Brien for this week's edition of Pastor Ponderings, where we explore topics biblical and faithful as people of God and living our faith in our world. These past couple of weeks throughout Advent season this December, we've been exploring prayer, and we have talked about a couple different forms of prayer in prayer through song, prayer through breathing exercises, and a collect or a five-finger prayer as a scripted prayer. And this week we're going to be doing something a little bit different. This type of prayer is called Lectio Divina. Lectio Divina. In Latin, Lectio Divina means sacred reading. Sacred reading. And it involves just that, which is reading our sacred text, so reading a passage from the Bible and using that passage as a way to reach into ourselves in introspection and also outside of ourselves to hear and listen to where God is calling us. This is a very slow prayer. Usually, if you talk to people who partake in this regularly, they would say set aside like 20-30 minutes to do this form of prayer. We're not going to do that today, but I'll explain why. Now, Lectio Divina, what it involves is reading a passage of Scripture repeatedly and usually very slowly, and allowing yourself to just absorb the words and let it sink in and fill every cell in your body, every part of you. With this comes intense listening and usually silence and just sitting with God in the Word. A lot of this tradition is taken from the Logos hymn, which we find in the very first words of the Gospel of John, which is that Jesus is the Word, and the Word is God. And so when we experience reading the Word, we're not just learning something, we're not just hearing a story, we are experiencing God through the Word. And so Lectio Divina allows us to create an avenue to listen to God in the midst of the Word. Now, there are four main parts that I will cover in Lectio Divina, and depending on who you ask, they'll talk about this differently. The first is you read the Word. The second is you reflect on the Word. The third is you respond to the Word. And the fourth is you rest in the Word. And so you read, you reflect, you respond, and you rest. And each time that we're doing this, we will read the passage over. So let's begin. I have chosen for this a passage from chapter 12 in Romans. Usually with Lectio Divina, you don't want a ton of scripture. Usually a few verses is fine. You can do more, but as you can tell, that'll make it last a lot longer. And I find that when you're not focused in on just a few verses or a handful of verses, it's easy to get distracted. And a lot of Lectio Divina, you don't want to be distracted. So let's hear Romans chapter 12, verses 9 through 13. When we read Lectio Divina, we also read slowly. We allow ourselves to ingest. So please join with me. Let love be genuine. Hate what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with mutual affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Do not lag in zeal. Be ardent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in suffering. Persevere in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Extend hospitality to strangers. Now, typically, if I were doing this practice on my own, I'd probably read that section 2 or 3 times just like that and let the words wash over me, and then take a moment of silence to hear what it is, to listen what it is that God is saying to me right now in these words. That's reading. As we move to reflect, we would read the passage again and then contemplate what is it that God is saying, and really let that stir in your heart. For me, as I did this exercise before recording this video, be ardent in spirit, serve the Lord, rejoice in hope, and be patient in suffering, persevere in prayer. That little section really spoke to me. I think it's because that I need extra strength in the confusion and chaos of this time. So hearing Paul say, and hearing God say through Paul's words, rejoice in hope. That hope is always a gift that we have. And be patient in suffering. That we know that even while we suffer, we are called to be patient because we know that suffering is not a reality. And persevere in prayer. That this exercise that we're doing here, that we have been doing, is so important to these things. So what I just did was not only reflect on what I think God is saying to me, but I also, through talking it out loud in this video, responded to it. So we have read, we have reflected, and we have responded. Normally, again, I would reread this passage 2 or 3 more times. And then we reach the point of rest. The last step of Lectio Divina, I think, is the most important, and that is to just sit a while. Let your mind wander if it wanders. I like to light a candle in someplace darker where there's less distractions, and I just read the words over again and sit a while with God. Sometimes for a few minutes, sometimes for 5 or 10 minutes. And that is Lectio Divina. I find it incredibly peaceful. I use Lectio Divina a lot in my sermon preparations, and I hope that it will also introduce to you the power of the Word in the Bible, not only as a means for communicating to us from God, but also a place of an invitation to deepen our relationship with God. Thank you so much for joining me this week for Pastor Ponderings. Let me know what you think of Lectio Divina, if you're able to try it in your own time, whether it fits for you or whether it doesn't. And Merry Christmas as we're coming up to that time. And be safe and always look for God wherever we go. Peace be with you.